If you've ever felt like the US election process is a tangled web of confusion, you're definitely not alone. Today we're breaking it down step by step through the American political landscape, from the early campaign stages all the way to inauguration day. Let's get into it. Alright, it's a year before the big election day. This is when things start to heat up. The candidates from the two main parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, kick off their campaigns. They're out and about, shaking hands, giving speeches and fundraising like absolute pros. It's their chance to show everyone why they're the best pick for their job. Almost like a nationwide tour where the goal is to rally support and build a team. Fast forward a bit and we hit the debates. These are the big moments where candidates from both parties go head-to-head on national TV. Essentially, a stage, tough questions and plenty of back and forth. Each candidate needs to not only share their vision but also defend their policies and counter their opponent's points. It's like a high-stakes game of political chess. Okay, let's break down what happens next. The US presidential election process can seem like a maze, but don't worry, we're here to guide you through it. Step 1. Primaries and caucuses. Imagine there are tons of people vying to be president, each with their own ideas on how to run the country. To pick who will be on the ballot, we start with primaries and caucuses. Primaries are like a big voting day, where party members cast their votes to choose the candidate they want to represent them in the general election. It's pretty straightforward. You vote and the candidate with the most votes gets the nod. Caucuses are a bit more like a neighborhood meeting. Party members gather, discuss and then vote for their preferred candidate. It's more of a community event with lots of talking and convincing. February is when things really kick off. The results from early states like Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada and South Carolina can set the tone for the rest of the race. These states are crucial because they usually determine who will be the final nominee for each party. Once the primaries and caucuses are done, it's time for the national conventions. Each party holds a convention where delegates who were chosen during the primaries and caucuses come together to officially endorse their party's candidates. At the convention, the final presidential nominee is announced and they also pick their running mate who will be their vice presidential candidate. It's like the grand finale of the nomination process. Now, the real action begins. In the general election, people across the country vote for their chosen president and vice president. But here's where it gets interesting. When you vote, you're actually voting for a group of people called electors. Each state has a certain number of electoral votes based on its population and representation in the Congress. Most states use a winner-takes-all system, so the candidate who gets the most votes in the state wins all of the electoral votes. To win the presidency, a candidate needs more than half of the 538 electoral votes, which means at least 270. So, even if a candidate wins the popular vote nationally, they can still lose if they don't secure enough electoral vote. Wild, right? Now, moving on to the next step, the Electoral College. Here's the lowdown on the Electoral College though. It's a process where electors from each state cast their votes to decide who becomes the president. Each state's number of electors is based on its total representation in Congress, senators plus House members. After election day, the electors meet in December and cast their votes. Congress then counts these votes in early January and the new president is officially inaugurated on January 20th. Actually, let's look at the presidential election cycle. So, when does all of this happen? Here's a quick timeline to keep you on track. Looking ahead to the 2024 election, former President Donald Trump is the Republican nominee while Vice President Kamala Harris is leading for the Democrats. While the presidential election gets the spotlight, remember that the Congress, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, is also up for grabs. The composition of Congress can influence how smoothly a president can push their agenda. And there you have it, the US election process cracked open. Stay tuned to India Today Global.